Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing us another fantasy football video. Been a little bit. Sorry, I had to pre-record a few of the last videos. I was busy getting married and on my honeymoon, so it was a lot of fun. But we're back here, and this should be a lot of fun. So in this one, I'm going to go over 5 wide receivers that are values to me this season. They're guys that I think have a great opportunity to potentially be just really safe draft picks, guys that I think are a really safe bet to outperform their ADP, and guys that I think can really be sort of anchors for your roster and just give you value where you maybe wouldn't have expected it. So hopefully you guys enjoy. If you guys have any other players you think I should have mentioned, let me know in the comments below. Any disagreements, let me know there as well. I love interacting with you guys a lot. So let's get into it, guys. So we're going to start things off here with Garrett Wilson. We know that Garrett Wilson's an elite player. There's not really anybody who's going to contest that. And he's finally being drafted with a low ADP. Historically, he's been a player that I haven't really wanted to draft much of just because the situation for him has always been horrendous. He's really never had a good quarterback his entire career. That's obviously not really changed this season. The defense at times has been decent, which is also bad if you want a lot of offensive production. And it just really hasn't worked out for him to really put up like an elite fantasy season just yet. And I think we're finally seeing him down at a point where people are overreacting to the stain that is the Jets offense. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 19. And arguably, he might have the best quarterback he's ever had. That's really depressing to say if you're a Jets or a Garrett Wilson fan. Not that Geno Smith is any good. He was obviously horrendous last season. But he's going to do a lot more for the offense than what like Justin Fields was doing last season, what the ghost of Aaron Rodgers has done. There's an opportunity here for this to be the best offense that Garrett Wilson has ever been a part of. And the reality is you're locking in 10 targets a game in the 4th round. I think you could legitimately be okay if you went really heavy. Like if you go running back, and then a tight end or a quarterback in round 3. It's not the worst thing in the world to have Garrett Wilson as your wide receiver 1 just because of how much guaranteed volume there is for him. I don't think there's a real path for him to go out there and be like a top 5 wide receiver unless he gets really lucky in the touchdown department or unless Geno Smith sort of bounces back. But I think he's a pretty safe bet to finish as a top 15 guy. I was actually the wide receiver 7 in points per game last season before he got hurt and they just sort of shut him down because the season didn't matter. I think there's a lot of opportunity here for Garrett Wilson to go out there and be really good this year. Again, the talent's there. We know he's going to be super involved, and especially in a full PPR format, he's got a legit shot to be a top 10, easily top 15 guy, and that's pretty significant value for a guy you're getting in the 4th round. Next up, we've got a pretty boring draft pick, but it's going to be Jakobi Meyers. Just everywhere Jakobi Meyers goes, he continues to produce at a pretty respectable level, and he's just always a value in drafts just because he's not exactly a sexy name. He doesn't go out there and put up wide receiver 1 finishes on a week. He's not exactly a deep threat. He's not an explosive player, but he's a guy that's going to go out there and do exactly what this offense wants him to do, and I think there's a chance for him to go out there and be a top 24 wide receiver for this team. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 42, so clearly not really a guy that's being drafted with the expectation that you're starting him every week, but he was wide receiver 35 after the trade last season. We know it's really hard to switch teams mid-season. We've seen it time and time again where these wide receivers get traded mid-season, and they just don't really return a lot of value for their team. And we actually saw Jakobi Meyers go out there and do quite a bit for this Jaguars team. They gave him a contract extension. They really liked what they saw, and now he's had a full offseason to really incorporate himself into this offense. It's also year 2 under Liam Cohen in Jacksonville, so in general, we're expecting this to be an offense that takes a step forward again this season. And I know there's a lot of mouths to feed here, but it does sound like Travis Hunter is probably going to be a guy that's going to focus more on the defensive side of the ball. Brian Thomas, I think he's incredibly talented, but they're saying not exactly the best things about him in terms of the roles going to be in the offense. They said they're going to use him downfield a lot more. That's, explosive plays are going to happen for Brian Thomas, but that's not really going to give him a super high target share. I think there's a chance that Jakobi Meyers ends up leading this Jaguars team in targets, and it just feels like he's a lock for a guy that's going to be like a wide receiver 3 kind of player, flex level player that you can play every single week, and getting that as the wide receiver 42 off the board feels pretty good. So he's probably, if I had to bet, the most likely wide receiver to finish as the top pass catcher for this Jaguars offense. There's, of course, more upside for Brian Thomas and everything, but Jakobi Meyers is a really good player. Everywhere he goes, he puts up big numbers. This is an offense we want pieces of, and I think Jakobi Meyers is definitely worth the draft pick right now. Moving on to a player that just doesn't seem to get enough love, Wan'Dale Robinson just keeps earning targets. He has 140 targets in each of the last 2 seasons, so that's 2 straight years of just being a really solid target earner. He also got legitimate money to go to be in a really important part of this Tennessee offense. And on top of that, you've got Carnell Tate there. That's really great because it means that Wan'Dale Robinson is not going to see primary coverage. He's going to be guys going to operate short and underneath. We saw him get used downfield a little bit last season as well, which is obviously great. And last season, Wan'Dale Robinson was the wide receiver 14. Horrible offense. I think there's actually a lot of opportunity here for this Titans offense to be sneaky good. I actually liked quite a bit about what I saw to Cam Ward over the back half of last season. If you think about just how much better this wide receiver room is with the addition of Wan'Dale and Carnell Tate, now you've got Chimere Dike, Alec Iamaner, Calvin Ridley's still there. They've got a legitimate wide receiver core here, and I do think that Cam Ward in year 2 should take a step forward. Coaching staff upgrades there in Tennessee, and the defense still is not good. So this isn't going to be a team that's going to go out there and win a lot of games, but I think the offense should be pretty decent, and Wan'Dale is going to get 8 targets a week on an offense that's not going to be horrible. I like that. As the wide receiver 46 off the board, I feel like you can play him every single week, and it's tough to say that for any player being drafted around him here. And again, wide receiver 14 last season is being drafted as a wide receiver 46. I don't know that it's fair to say the offense is any worse here in Tennessee than it was in New York last season. So I like this quite a bit. They paid him a lot of money. They clearly like him. He's still with Brian Daboll, so a lot of familiarity there. I think this is going to be a good spot for Wan'Dale, and I think he'll be a pretty good fantasy asset again. This one should be pretty easy, but Terry McLaurin just feels pretty underdrafted right now. In his 1 full season with Jayden Daniels, we saw McLaurin finish as the wide receiver 14 in fantasy points per game. He was wide receiver 6 overall. That's obviously incredible upside for a player that you're seeing drafted at the wide receiver 24 right now. We know that Terry McLaurin's incredibly talented. He's just turned 30 years old, so he's not quite at that age cliff yet. We're worried about it. We continue to see guys like Devontae Adams, Mike Evans perform at a high level later into their careers, and I just don't want to overreact to last season. I think that Jayden Daniels showed us as a rookie that he's a really talented player. He's more than just a runner at the quarterback position. He can do quite a bit with this with his arm, and if you look at the pass catchers for this Commanders offense, where's the ball going to go other than Terry McLaurin? They lost Deebo Samuel. Maybe they get Brandon Ayuk at some point, but God knows what that's going to mean. They have Chig Okonkwo as their tight end. They lost Zach Ertz. Terry McLaurin is going to be everything for this passing game, and I think he's a guy that could easily go out there and put up another double-digit touchdown season. We know there's top 10 upside for him. We know the talent's there. If you believe that Jayden Daniels is a good quarterback, which I do, then Terry McLaurin has to be a phenomenal draft pick in fantasy just because there's nowhere else for the ball to go. So I like McLaurin quite a bit. You can get him as your wide receiver 3 or as the worst wide receiver 2 in the league or in your league, and that's amazing for a guy that obviously has wide receiver 1 upside. So I think I'll be drafting a lot of Terry McLaurin this season. We got another really talented player here. It's going to be Ladd McConkey, who will close us out for the values. Obviously, last season was really disappointing, but the value here is that we know Ladd McConkey is really good, and we know that this offense should be really good. The offense added Mike McDaniel. That's obviously a great upgrade from a play calling standpoint. And really, as long as he's on the field in 2 wide receiver sets, which I think they're going to run a lot more of this season, you've obviously got Oronde Gadsden and David Njoku there in Los Angeles. The more 2 wide receiver sets you run, the better it is on a per route basis for the 2 wide receivers on the field. Just because they're better at getting targets than tight ends. Makes sense. They're receivers. They're not part blockers like you are if you're a tight end. And as a rookie, we saw Ladd McConkey go out there and finish as a wide receiver 16. Last season, just a horrendous run of injuries for this team. They had no offensive line. You had Keenan Allen in this offense last season. He's gone, so that opens up more targets for Ladd McConkey. And again, there's a slight risk where maybe they just don't like Ladd McConkey out there in 2 wide receiver sets. If they wanted to pigeonhole him into the slot position, you could see a world where Trey Harris and Quentin Johnston are on the field a lot, but that just doesn't make any sense. Ladd McConkey's clearly their best wide receiver. We saw him again, wide receiver 16 as a rookie. We know the talent's there. There's legitimate top 10 upside here for Ladd McConkey as a guy being drafted as the wide receiver 20. So I like him quite a bit. Even top 5 upside feels like it's there for Ladd McConkey. I think this offense could be that good, and I think Ladd McConkey's that talented. And being able to find that at the wide receiver 20, it's just tough to pass up. So I'll be drafting a ton of Ladd as well this season. So that'll do it for the wide receiver values video. Up next, we'll go over some quarterbacks and tight ends that I think are great values this season. So stay tuned for that video. We got a lot more content coming up here. We're really starting to get into the thick of things here. It's early July, so we're going to start getting to training camp soon. We're less than a month out from the Hall of Fame game. A lot of stuff coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to keep putting out about 3 videos every single week. So if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Click the notification bell so you get notifications as I make new videos. Be involved. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comments below. I love interacting with you guys there. And hopefully you guys enjoyed. So I'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.
Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.